Right, chaps, it's me again. Right, if you don't like down and dirty machining, you may want to turn away now and not look at what I've done, because there we go. Now I think we might have a bit of an issue here with that Tommy Lipton fella and that Stefan Gotteswinter. They're going to be very jealous of this, because although they took hours making theirs, I didn't. But anyway, I had to sort of think of what I was going to do something with this quickly. So I've made this. I'm going to show you how I set it up. What I do, I put square against that block and I bring it forward, and because I've got no adjustment on this, it'll move up and down on the shaft, which is fine. So what I do is I slacken that little Allen screw off and bring it out till it just starts to make the needle move. Yeah. And then lock that off, and then I slacken this one at the back here, and I keep moving it left and right until I find the high spot, and then tighten that up, and that seems to centre it. So what I've done, look, I've pressed a ball bearing in the front, I've ground the bottom and the top. We've got a piece of silver steel stuck in that hole. Stuck in that hole's not a very nice way of explaining it. Loctited. I've Loctited it in the hole. I just made that block up quickly. I haven't got the time to mess about with this too much at the moment, so I thought this would be the easiest way. Right, then we get a bit of... So this block here is the bigger one of the two. This is my block. So we'll zero this up, look. Nearly there. By the way, hello to my mate Loz. I was talking to him yesterday for a good hour or so on the phone. Right, so we're zero there. This is the 10th dial indicator, this one. And we'll come on to this side. If this goes like it did when I checked it a few minutes ago, you're going to like this. Because I was having so many problems trying to measure stuff before, I actually thought to myself, I don't think this block's anywhere near as accurate as I thought it was. So, that side, look. Zero. Try it on this end. Zero. We're a tenth under there, just over a tenth under on that side. Right, now we'll flip it on its back. We'll do it this way. Just under zero, about half a tenth. Now I've just banged the gauge there, and let me just reset this gauge. Even though this little setup I've made is so much better, so much easier to use, you still got to be careful that you don't clout it. Are we still in focus there? So that was zero there. It's a tenth over there. Zero there. Tenth over there. I think that's because I've just knocked that again. Right, so we're zero. Half a tenth. Whoa, maybe a quarter of a tenth if you're lucky. It's about a tenth. So that gauge, that block at the minute is pretty much within a tenth all the way around to being square. Now, if I said Al's a happy lad, I would be fibbing a bit there, wouldn't I? Right, let's just see if I can get that gauge in shot a bit. Right, we'll go that corner first. Stick a bit of preload on. Now this gauge is the one that is, each line on this one is 0.02 of a millimetre. So 0 there, 0 there, 0 there, 0 there. How's that, boys? Now I'm extremely happy with how that's turned out. I couldn't have asked for it any better. So what I can now do is I'll just wipe this table down a little bit. You can hear the grinder going in the background because we're going to be doing a bit more grinding in a minute. So I can put my block there and use it as a standard now, can't I, to make sure that I'm on the money with my little gauge here. Right, and we're pretty much, well, if anything, yeah, can you see that? Oh, I've got this camera on tracking and I think it keeps losing the, well, I think that's because I keep putting the fat hands in the way. That's not too bad at that. So, this is the block that we did for Robin, and this one, we ground this bottom side, we had it bolted to my block. Now bear in mind, I was a little bit worried about this because it seemed to be a lot of weight hanging over, and I was a bit concerned that that's within 0.2 that side. Two-tenths under that side. I think I've just clouted it again. Let's try again, shall we? Right, we're about 0.5 tenth over. What's going on here? I checked this a few minutes ago before I turned the camera on, and it was pretty bloody good. Right, we're still holding 0 there. So this side, we are about 0.4 out. Yeah, 0.4. So we need to think about this a bit, don't we? So this is tipped over that way 0.4. So this bottom side down here is high, isn't it? Am I getting that right? Just trying to mark this. So what I need to do is grind that bottom flat and then leave a step down this side, but obviously on the bottom. No, I don't. Well, I'll tell you what, you have to be careful when you're trying to work this out, because actually I'm doing this wrong, aren't I? Because I've altered the gauge again and I shouldn't have done. It is quite fiddly, this. I'm mega impressed with that block of mine now, being that accurate. Bloody hell. And it's the same when I stand it on its end as well. Oh, there we go, look. So we're 1/10 out that side. We're 2/10 out that, 3/10 out that side. You do an awful lot of checking and rechecking when you're doing this. See, we're back under 0 again. I think this is now really showing up the wear in this surface plate. Try not to move that thing at all and bring the block up to it. Yes, So we're 2/10 out that side. Two-tenths low that side. So we're about 4/10 out total, aren't we? So that's 2/10 low. That means this bottom corner down here is the high point. I've really got to think about this, because if I told you I've been and ground once before a few weeks ago and ground the wrong side twice, I wouldn't be lying. So we point, I'm just going to write 2 there. So we're 2/10 high there. So if I grind the bottom flat, and then on the bottom side of there, leave an edge down there, so grind all the way across that way, or it doesn't matter which way, grind it flat, but on this bottom low side here, leave a 2/10 high strip all the way down, and then come back, and yeah, I'm going to put a down arrow so I remember which way I've got it on the surface plate. So I won't bother filming the grinding bit. I'll go and grind this now. Just got to dress the wheel, and then we'll have a look in a minute and see if I've done any good or not. So yeah, so remember that, look, we're 2/10 low. I will double check before I get back on the grinder to make sure I'm not going the wrong way. Right, back in a minute. Right, we've been having a bit of a play. Made a bit of a mistake. This is where you've got to be careful. What I did, I went over and I ground the lip on it that I wanted, and unfortunately, instead of, I was 4/10 out, so what I really should have done was put a 2/10 step in it, but I wasn't thinking. Other things going on in my mind, and what I did, I ground 4/10 off it. Well, I should have just ground half of that, i.e. the 2/10. So I come back, put it on the surface plate, and I couldn't understand for a minute what had gone wrong. And then my son came in to ask me about something. He wanted to go chop some logs, so I was talking to him while I was on the grinder and I wasn't paying attention. So what I did, I ground and left a step on the opposite side. When I got back to the surface plate, 0 there, I realised what I'd done. So I had to grind the bloody thing again. And we're about half a tenth under there. So, can you see that? So what I can do now, the battery's about to die on the camera, I can sit this down that way on the grinder now and then grind this parallel to the bottom and then flip it up and then grind the step out parallel to that, and then we start on the ends. So I'll try and keep you up to date best I can and hopefully don't bore the pants off you too much. Anyway, we'll crack on. Right chaps, we're back from the grinder again. Hopefully this will about do this side. Just have a quick check with our master block. Bring that camera a bit, see if I can. I'm going to see if I can lock the focus on the camera. Just bear with me a second. That's going to be about as good as I can get, I think. Right, let's check our little Scraptonian gauge. Right, so we're still reading 0. This is the block straight off the grinder. It's near enough to 0, that might be 1/4 of a tenth, something like that. dropped into one of the holes. Smack on 0. So that is about 1/4 of a tenth over 3.5 inches. I think I'm not even going to bother trying to chase that. That's going to do us. Right. We'll just wipe some of this, some of these Sharpie marks off this block, because now what we've got to do with the ends. So we'll find out which end is best. So, let's bring you back in a bit to that gauge. So, just kiss the side of this. So on that side, we are plus nearly 7. That side we're minus 1,000. Let's try it the other way up. So that way we're plus about 8. And that way we're minus 1,000. So we're about the same both ends, aren't we? So I think what we'll do, we'll have it sat on the grinder with the bolt holes to the top, I think. Right, which way do we want to be doing it now? Do we want to... Oh shit, I banged it. Heavy-handed lump. Yeah, look at that one. I'm beginning to think Al and precision gauges and things don't go together very well. Right, well, that's near enough a 0 for me. So let's try it this way, shall we? So that way we are, what are we there? Minus 4/10. That way. We're about smack up. So how does that work? Well, maybe minus 3.5 tenths that way. Let's try it the other way up. You really have to pay attention to any slight bits of dirt anywhere. It reminds me when you're going out on a date with a bird and you've been on a date with her for a few times. You think your luck might be in. It's a bit like surface grinding. Make sure everything's in the right place and clean as a whistle. Right, so that way we're minus 8. Plus 5. I'm wondering, could I bolt my block together, do you think? Might be worth a go, wouldn't it? I'll have a look and see what we can come up with. Right, we'll just have a quick recap of where we've got to. I'm now doing the tall side. So that's about 1/10 over. 1/10 over. So that is perfectly parallel in that way. One thing I should have mentioned before, and I forgot, when you're trying to work out the difference in the height of the block, you want to bring your gauge up and get it as close to the top as you can. I should have said that before. Don't ask me how I know that. Just what you find is if you have the gauge halfway down like I did earlier, and you're measuring a difference of, I don't know, let's say it's 1 thou, and you think, right, well, I'll take half a thou off and leave a half thou step at the other end. You take it off the grinder, put it back on here, and you think, hang on, we're nowhere near. It's because you're only measuring half the deviation, aren't you? So then we've got to do this side. So that is 14 tenths low there. And about the same that way. So I'm going to, what I tend to do, I work from the low side. I've found that seems to be easier for me. So what I'm basically doing is, so we're about 14 tenths low, so that means that we need a step on the opposite side of the block, down in this corner. I'll put an arrow on the front of my block so I know which way it's facing. So I'm going to take 7 tenths off this and leave a 7 tenths step on the opposite side, and it then should tilt the block over to get rid of some of the deviation what we've got. And what I also do is, before I get anywhere near the grinder, I'll put a Sharpie line down that side where I want to leave a step. Like that, look. See that on there? Can we focus, you git? So that's what I shall do. So this isn't, by the way chaps, I'm not telling you how you should do this. I'm showing you how I'm doing it, and we'll see whether it works out alright. So far, so good. So we'll have a bit of a blast at this side and see where we get to. Okay chaps, I'm about done now, I think, as good as I'm going to get them for the time being anyway. I may have another look at them later on down the road, but we'll see how things go. But 0, turn that block out of the way, 0, that side's a couple of tenths under, 0, that's my block. This is the one I've made for my friend Rob. 0 there, 10th under there, 10th under there, 0 there. So I'm going to call that now good. So we'll just move over to the bench. Well, there we are boys, in all their glory. For the time being anyway, they're as good as I can get them. Making that little thing was, I know it doesn't look much, but bloody hell, that was a godsend. So that's worked out alright. My particular block, there's a few bits in there where I didn't get out with a grinder, but they were, I'm sure Robin will be real happy. I'm a bit pissed off there, look, a massive great scratch on there, a little bit of grit underneath it. I either slid it onto the grinding table or onto the surface table, I'm not sure. But anyway, I'm really happy that they've come out. That both blocks, along the lengths of them, they're, you know, within a tenth. For all of our metric people over here, if you this particular gauge here, if you're wondering what a tenth is, if you're into metric, you'll know what 1/100th of a millimetre is. Well, 1/100th of a millimetre is about 3.6 tenths or something like that. So that'll give you some idea of how fine an adjustment that is. This one, which I had no idea what it was, says on there 2 Now, fortunately, one of the guys commented that that's actually, each line on that is 0.002 of a millimetre. So that's just pretty fair as well, isn't it? So what have I learned? Oh, shitloads. One thing I've tried to remember as I was going along, some of the things that I was picking up and that I was getting. Michael, friend over in the States, he came up with some really good suggestions, and you just have to read what he writes and think about it, and it makes complete sense. When I've taken a clean-up cut on this end, let's say, and you're coming across with a grinder, if when it's going backwards and forwards and it's grinding away, if the sparks look even from front to back, and when you come off it and you take a look at it, if you see that there's one bit where, you know, the finish is not quite the same as another part, I've learnt myself not to send it back at the same setting first, is to take it off the grinder, go and put it on the surface plate and measure it. Because if it turns out that it's absolutely square like you was after, who gives a shit about what that little bit, you know, slight deviation in the finish, it doesn't matter. There's one thing I should have really realised myself when I started doing these, but I didn't. But thanks to Michael, he put me right on that, and a few other things as well. But I mean, the finish on it, on the blocks, yeah, they're not bad at all, are they? What else? My grinder. Yesterday when I was doing this, because, you know, today's another day, late in the afternoon, when I started the grinder, I never switched it off. I left the spindle running all the time, which I think is a good thing. Now, you just have to remember, boys, that I'm only telling you what I've learnt so far, so this is not gospel. You know, you have to do your own research, and if anything I say, even if you don't agree with it, it doesn't matter if you're not sure whether you're right or not, put it in the comments, because, you know, the more people get involved in these things, the more that we all learn. But with my grinder being an auto grinder on the X-axis and the Y, it's powered by hydraulics, and over the time yesterday, because I had this machine going yesterday for about 4.5 hours, I never switched it off. Every time I took the block off and I was checking measurements and all the rest of it, I just left it running, because I didn't want it to I wanted to keep it at temperature. Now unfortunately for mine, and I don't know if all Jones and Shipmans are like this, the oil gets bloody hot after a while, and that heat starts to transfer up through the machine itself, to the point where I was grinding the bottom of this block on where it's threaded. And when I went back to the surface plate and checked it, I only took a really light skim, and it had left a hump in the middle. That was due to the fact that because all these holes are here, you haven't got so much metal there, have you, to absorb the heat. So it actually got slightly warm. And I couldn't understand why. I said, well, why has that got so bloody warm? You know, it's a fair lump. Well, I think it was a combination of two things. Now, I'm hoping that some of you experienced guys will be able to give me a bit of an idea on this, because when you start to get down to the fine measurements that I've been grinding these two down to tenths, every little bit counts. Cleanliness is just, you can't be too clean. And my precision ground stones, what I made for keeping the mag chuck perfectly flat, invaluable. But what had happened, what I found with the machine was the carriage on it that goes backwards and forwards was getting that hot with the hydraulic oil. When I put my hand on the mag plate, believe it or not, the mag plate had got hot. So whether it was that was transferring a bit of heat into this, I think maybe that was what it was, because I never took more than, the heaviest cut I was ever taking on any of these blocks yesterday was just a few tenths. And I can't really think what else it would be. So this morning when I've come out to finish these off, once I got the grinder going, I've left the spindle running. I hadn't turned it off until I finished, but each time I'd finished grinding the step for whatever bit I was doing, I turned the hydraulics off so it didn't get too hot. So that's something to remember. I think in normal everyday grinding it wouldn't make any difference, obviously, but when you're chasing tenths like I was, it can be you've really got to look at what you're doing. So one other thing I was going to mention, let's say when I measured this block I needed to grind a step at this end, yeah, down to here. So let's say it was tilted and it was out by, I don't know, let's say 7 or 8 tenths. So I would take my measurement from the top on both sides to get the deviation that the block's out. And then let's say it was 8 tenths out. I would put 4 tenths on my grinder, grind across, and stop, and I'd leave myself, 2 or 3 mil step on this end. Go check it on the grinder. And usually I'd find that I would have moved about half of what I was trying to get rid of. But then, instead of going back and thinking, right, well, we've brought it back by 4 tenths, we'll put another 4 tenths on, I didn't do that. I did a couple of times and I got caught out. You've got settlement in the grinding head, settlement in all the screw threads on the grinder. And all these things, they just all come together to bite you in the arse just when you don't expect it. So I would maybe only put a couple of tenths on and sneak up on it. And then once I've got this end with the step in, obviously then you take it back to your surface plate, put it upside down, or put it that side down, you take your measurement on that side, and providing you're reading 0, 0, you can then put it back on the grinder with this side down and grind this top flat. The amount of times that I've redressed that wheel is not funny, but I'm afraid when you're trying to get something like this to this accuracy, you've got no choice. The finest little touches that you do just affects everything. Temperature, the whole lot. It's I've really enjoyed it, to be honest, because it's out of my comfort zone. It's been a massive learning curve. So, I mean, before I started doing this, I don't suppose I really knew much more than just throwing a piece of steel on the grinder and grinding it to what I thought was flat, or as flat as what I needed it to be, and that would be it. But the comments that I've gotten through these videos of grinding these blocks have been invaluable. You guys there with all the experience, Mike, Dave in Australia, Dave up in Sheffield, and you'll have to forgive me if I've missed anybody's names out because I can't remember them all, but those comments that those guys have put on and emails that I've sent to me have been a godsend, because you've got the experience of somebody else. They can watch you, see what cock-ups you're making, and then they can advise you on what they would do. And it's not what you say, is it? It's how you say it. And you read between the lines on a lot of these comments and pick up on what people make. But it's not just the comments of of advice that's helped me. All the comments on this job have been absolutely fantastic. Because that bit of encouragement, it just, it gives you a bit more fuel to keep going and not sort of get disarmed. Not that I ever do get disarmed, because I'm one of them people that if I see somebody doing something and I've got an interest in it, I just think to myself, well, I've got 2 arms and 2 legs and a brain the same as them. If they can do it, I can do it. It doesn't always work quite like that, I'm afraid, but you'll get there in the end if you're determined enough. And I'm just really happy how these have turned out. Robin he'll love this. He'll think that's brilliant. I just know he will, and hopefully I'll get many years of use out of it. I have a friend of mine who's going to build me a heat treat oven in the future. So what we may do, I think this block was 4140. This, I'm not sure whether this is just normal mild steel. I'm not sure. I've no real way of knowing. Both these blocks were given to me by Dave in Sheffield. He gave me a load of offcuts of stuff and some round and some cores. He trepanned out of stuff, and I did keep seeing them sat on the floor and kept thinking to myself, I'm going to make something out of them. I don't know what yet. And then when I decided on these, or to make these setup blocks, I did think, well, have a bit more than I can chew here. But anyway, really happy that I did it. I'm really grateful to all the comments and everything, and the goodwill on these blocks. It's worked out a treat. I hope you've all enjoyed it. what we're going to do next now. Well, the top slide on the lathe is still set at the angle for making the grinding hubs. So I think my next project will be making some more of those hubs, and I will film it this time because they're quite interesting things to do. I think you'll quite like that actually. And when I've got the hubs finished, I'm going to make a proper comparator. I mean, that little thing, for me, for this job, has been worth its weight in gold. It took me about 2 hours to knock that up. We're grinding it flat and, you know, drilling and tapping all these bloody holes, but it's been a godsend, it really has. And it's that good that I'm definitely going to make a really nice one. We maybe get some tool steel ordered for that. Hopefully when my mate gets me oven made a bit later in the year, we'll get some tool steel and make one of these, and we'll harden it and everything. Somebody did say, why was I making these? Well, I suppose the simple answer is because I can. Really is that simple. I can make them. How often will I use this block? Not very often. But when I want it, I should walk in my house, grab it, and it's there, isn't it? Knowing that it's pretty damn square, like, you know, it's on the money. So, right, so I'm going to put my dial indicators away, have a bit of a tidy up, go in the house, load this video up, and edit it, stick it on for you guys. So we'll leave it at that, I think. So thank you very much for all your help and your words of encouragement. It's this job's worked out really well for me. I'm really happy with it. If you're not subscribed and you don't want to, yeah, I understand. If you can hit that thumbs up button at the bottom of the video there, I'd appreciate that. Don't cost you out, and hopefully it might help me out a bit in the future. So anyway, till next time, boys and girls, we'll see you later.